So this is going to act as kind of a part two of the first video about how I talked about trust fund babies scamming you through like social media appearances. And one of the things that I really want to talk about in this is that the fact that I think I mentioned in the last video that I dated three millionaires, right? So there's three kinds of millionaires in this world, right? There's inherited, right? Somebody that just essentially, like, think of the gold digger, right? Like somebody that inherits the money after somebody passes away. There's the business side, right? Like there's a kind that uses religion to justify their shitty behavior. That was the second one. And the third one, right, is essentially the entrepreneurial, you're not getting in my circle. I know I'm a shit person and I'm going to keep being a shit person because it makes me money kind of millionaire. Now, have I met decent millionaires? I've had exchanges with them, say for like at car shows or something, like when somebody brings out like a supercar and they actually own it. Um, I've had decent talks with them. You know, they're going to talk to you about what they own because it's their trophy in life, but that's the extent that's going to go. You know, you're not going to get any more information out of them. They're not going to help you because it's not worth their time. And that's the big aspect with millionaires is their time is their money. So even if it means, well, I'm not going to meet my daughter's boyfriend or he doesn't sound like he even deserves a chance because it's not worth my time, that's the route that they'll take. So it should be pretty self-explanatory that the first type of millionaire that I talked about, the inherited type, they lost everything or are in the process of losing everything because they spent all their money. That's how it works. You know, you get handed an exorbitant amount of money and you spend it like you're, Jeff Bezos or you're, Warren Buffett. You ain't gonna have it. It's $2 million. Don't really go that far when gas is so expensive. The cost of living's expensive. Doritos are $8.99 a bag, right? It's just not gonna go that far, especially when you're somebody that is very bad with money to begin with. Um, but this isn't the type of millionaire that I want to talk about. I actually want to talk about the third type because this is where I've had probably the shittiest outcome in life that has been affecting me for the better half of probably a year and a half now going on, right? I'm sorry if my camera kind of keeps getting a little fuzzy or going in and out. It's not the most expensive laptop, obviously. Um, right now I'm just recording. The sun's kind of passing behind the clouds behind me, so it's getting bright, dark, bright, dark. But anyways, getting into it. So I met this girl on Duet. I don't exactly want to say her name because obviously privacy reasons and whatnot. But she's 26. And this is where I'd never dated somebody that was too much older than me. I'd only, dated from like a week older to maybe a year. So this is somebody that's 4 years older than me. So, I was 20, I was 21, no, turning 22, and she was 26. So this is somebody that can make their own decisions, right? They can go independent of their parents and obviously understand that there's a great sense of independence that comes when you become of age in your mid 20s. You should be looking for a house by yourself. You should be wanting to start a family. You should be wanting to move away from your parents. But she immigrated here 8 years ago from Thailand. And I gotta say, to this day, even still, this was the prettiest girl that I had ever dated. I mean, it doesn't even come close. And it's just one of those things that did that have something to do with it? Me making this video? I can't lie a little bit, because I am still very heartbroken about this decision that she decided to make. But I started dating her. It was March of 25, and this only lasted 5 months, by the way. So like fall came around, she was gone. But it wasn't for any reason that we ourselves couldn't work. It was her mom. Now, I've been working warehouse jobs pretty much ever since I got back from Florida with millionaire, inheritance number one, the that I invest everything into, fun items and lose it all. So I came back, I'd been working FedEx for I think 2.5 years at that point. Uh yeah, two roughly, I think it was 2 years. And my buddy told me, he's like, "Hey man, you should check out this dating app called Duet." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever, right?" Like I'm just messing around at this point because I was in college still. This was before I decided to drop out after seeing the 3 to 5 years experience and AI posts start popping up. And I met this beautiful girl on there. And I mean, I didn't even think she was real because she had one picture on her profile. And I'm like, okay, this is probably a scam, right? So I drove to, like, we both met locally after talking for about 2 to 3 weeks. We both met at a B&B Theaters. And I was shocked to see that she was real. I was like, I came armed. Like, I had a knife on me and everything. I'm like, I have no idea if this is going to be like a setup or what, because it almost seemed too good to be true. But we met, we talked. She introduced me to her culture. I introduced her to some of American culture, even though she'd been here for 8 years. But she started to tell me she'd been in a relationship with her ex boyfriend. They were together for 2 years, and she used to live in Tampa, Florida. Now, the issue with that, right, doesn't stem from her past, right? Because she remained, as far as I know, loyal. But the ex-boyfriend that she was talking to me about, so both parents owned companies and they were trying to get both of them to date and marry to have one collaborative wealth. And this guy had 3 different cell phones with women. And this is the hypergamy argument, right? Hypergamy eventually leads to polyamory, whether you like it or not. And that's why hypergamy is a dangerous fucking thing. But you had this guy, he's got 3 different cell phones. He's got 2 sports cars because mommy and daddy are rich and bought him that shit. The kind of guy that I talked about in the last video that'd be like, "Oh, buy my course, man. Buy this, buy that." So you kind of can imagine how beautiful this girl is for a guy like this to be dating her, right? I'm some Midwestern blue collar guy. I've worked warehouse work for the last 4 years now. So I'm like, what in the hell does this chick want to do with me? So we start kind of talking, about that, and she's like, "Yeah, he cheated on me, and my mom wanted us to stay together and wanted him to apologize, but by the time he apologized, he was crying when I found out that he had different girls on 3 different phones." I started to learn something. These people don't give a fuck even about their own children. They give a fuck about the money that they can collaborate into one family and then send off those kids, even if they're in a very shitty situation, with each other. And God bless her soul for going for a guy like me that was someone that no college degree, because I'd once again said dropped out, blue collar warehouse worker, didn't make much. I drove a 2015 Nissan Frontier, and she was driving, I want to say it was a 2023 Bronco High Trail, like 4-door, like the full size Bronco. Obviously, mommy bought it for her, but she was showing me her handbags. Right, and now, number one, I never even went to this chick's house because her parents didn't want anything to do with me. Why are you dating down? Not only that, why are you dating a warehouse worker? That's the kind of mentality these people have. And yes, it broke me because at the end of the day, months went on, we were happy together. She talked about marriage. She'd call me, "I want to fucking marry you," like literally verbatim. I was building my RC cars, I was happy, and I started working 16-hour days at FedEx to try and get this apartment. I worked from, I want to say it was 1:30 uh 1:30 p.m. to uh 8 a.m. one day. Yeah, 8 a.m. I worked 4 shifts in a row because they spaced their shifts out 4 hours, from each other. I worked 4 shifts in a row. I started working and working and working, right, to pay for this apartment. Because I didn't buy an apartment for the two of us, but that was the goal, to get her out of that house and to get us, where we could start our own company. She wanted to do a cooking company. I know how to file an LLC, and I said, guess what? Because I've read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, I said, we're gonna buy assets, right? We're gonna set up this little, Thai cooking company, traditional cooking company, and we're gonna branch off into real estate, buy duplexes, and eventually, branch off and essentially own our own brand, right? But eventually, her mom figured out I knew what I was doing, and she was coming to family functions. My family knew about her, and my family loved this girl. They loved her like almost like my sibling, you know. And she did a lot for me in a very short period of time, and it was really unfortunate to just see how she was getting treated at home. She'd come home and her and her mom would get in full blown like screaming matches over her dating me because she wanted her to date Tony, who was 28, and his dad owned an accounting firm. And so eventually I get a text, and this text says, "Hey, I should we focus on ourselves and break up to focus on our own companies?" And I'm like, number one, she couldn't speak very good English. I don't fault her for that. English is not the easiest language to learn, but it's like, why? It's like, why in God's green earth would you want to break up? We've been so happy together, like there was no reason. We didn't really ever fight. She ran away to her grandma's house, to her stepdad's grandma's house. And by the way, this mom, I'm very sure, was bought and brought. You know what I mean? Like, guy owned an insurance company, went over to Thailand, bought a traditional wife, brought her back over, and that just happened to come with the kid who was my girlfriend. It's just very unfortunate. They don't want you in their circle, like I said, because they look at you like scum, like rabble, like harumph. Why are you dating this person? But you can't help the step that you're at in life. I chased a girl down to Florida. I'm behind. Is what it is. I'm trying. I'm digging myself out of this hole that I dug myself into for, since I was 18 years old. I dug myself into a hole, spent all my money on another girl down in Florida that I thought was going to be my wife that I was with for 4 years. She turned into a piece of shit. So I came back and I thought I met somebody that was going to help me dig out of that hole and be, a great companion for the rest of my life. Didn't happen. But what it taught me, though, right, is these people don't care. They want their wealth to essentially intermingle with other wealth, so it just compounds on top of each other until they don't have to even think about work, right? Can I blame them? No. But at the same time, if your daughter was happy with somebody, fuck you and your fucking company. I hope it goes under because that's what you goddamn deserve. I can't imagine sitting there telling somebody, no, you shouldn't date him because he's poor. I don't give a fuck if a millionaire falls in love with a homeless person. It is what it is. Sometimes that shit exists, like, get over it. I went to business. I didn't even get a chance to introduce myself or even make anything of myself with them because they wouldn't allow it. I was in the DECA program all throughout high school. I was in the Duke Tip program in 7th grade, took the SAT in 7th grade. I was going to college for business management, business logistics, entrepreneurship. Didn't work. They didn't care. They wanted her to get with somebody that already had the proven wealth, not somebody like me that could prove themselves if given a proper platform. And she ended up having to break up with me because her mom basically said at the end of the day, if you do not break up with him, I'm going to take everything from you. You're just going to be living on the street. I was working my ass off at a warehouse to give her a semblance of life so we could live alone together. So this wouldn't be a problem. And the way she broke up with me was she didn't want to say it, but she sent that message that I talked about how I think we should we break up, like asked it as a question. And I said, no, we're going to work it out because that's fucking ridiculous that your mom wants us to break up. You know, because I knew exactly what it was. She skipped 4th of July for the same reason. You know? And her mom made her work on 4th of July knowing that she had plans with my family to come over and celebrate. And she essentially said at the end of the day, I'm here to help my mom. I'm here to work for my mom. You know, I can't do this. I can't be with you because my mom won't allow it. That is what broke me because I was told I'm not good enough. Could you imagine being told that shit? You work warehouse jobs, you slave away. You can't afford to move out of your house. You can barely afford to get gas. You can't afford food. And you're told you're not good enough. It hurts. You know, you didn't want to do anything bad to their daughter. You wanted to give her the best life that she could possibly live, even if it was the clothes on your back. But you're not good enough because we see you as the rabble that has to turn the cogs in the machine, not the person that presses the button for the cogs to turn. I hope one day I run into her because I'm gonna ask her. I'm gonna be like, was it worth it? Because I know she wasn't happy about it. But I know at the same time, her mom was the only link in the chain that could get her back home if she wanted to go back home to see family. So I understand. I don't have any animosity toward her. I don't hate her. But this is what they think of you. And it opened my eyes. And it's like the second millionaire, right? The second millionaire that I dated, I didn't date for very long, but she wouldn't date me because of religion. I didn't grow up going to church. I didn't grow up doing any of that because my dad hated it. I go to church sometimes now, but you didn't grow up Christian, so you're not. It's the same difference. Wealth and money, like are the same as judging somebody because they're not religious. You can't, if you grew up with it and you grew up rich and you're not going to understand the same way like somebody that grew up going to church all their life. You're not going to understand the person that just started going or the person that just made their first million. They're not going to have anything to do with you because you're not in the club. You're not in that circle. And it's disillusion, right? Like it's drawing a line between somebody who's working class pitching a good idea to somebody and they're just like, no, we don't want to hear it. We don't want you dating our daughter. We don't want you anywhere around our family because you're the peasant in this situation. It's absolutely rage inducing. I'm still reeling from it. I dropped all my friends because I got so embarrassed with the line of work that I was doing for FedEx, being a package handler at a warehouse. I was embarrassed to say that after that. Like, holy fuck, I'm 23, I should be farther? I don't get it. I really don't. Like, I did all I could, and I guess that's what matters. But it hurts to this day. I mean, hell, I drive a 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. I worked for that vehicle. You know, I worked to build up the credit to be able to afford that vehicle because I've wanted one ever since they've came out. But it'll never be enough. It'll never be enough in some people's eyes because all they see is what they were born with. And it's unfortunate, you know. I used to be I used to be chubby, you know, as a kid growing up. And I worked in the gym for 2.5, 3 years alongside FedEx to get to where I look like today. I my dates, right? I don't have problems dating anymore. I can get a date if I want to, which is great. But doesn't mean I'm getting quality. It just is it's a shitty position to be in. To have been so happy, not even giving a fuck about the money, giving a fuck about a girl that actually cares about you, that would sit there, would damn near die on the same argument that you would have against something, and then only for it to be turned down because her own family, her own blood, tells her you can't be with that guy because he's a dingy warehouse worker. It's not right. And I know more than one person's been in this kind of situation. There's obviously they're not the only rich people out there, but it's just insane to me that this is even that even happened. This girl could have been a model, could have went for, you know, like a 6'5", because I'm only 5'9". She could have went for like a 6'5", like I talked about in the last video, the blonde hair, you know, and she said, no, I'm done with that because they don't produce anything. These people that come from these rich families that post, you know, their whole lives on Instagram, they don't do anything but cheat and fucking bastardize themselves. But she didn't want that. But her mom wanted that for her. So how's that fair? I don't know. I've said at the end of the day, you know, I hope she swears off dating for a long fucking time, at least until that biological time clock ends, and then her mom's just stuck with no grandkids. Because that's kind of what they deserve at this point. I'm not somebody that would have taken advantage of their money. I've dated and broken up with, you know, two of the three. So I'm not after money. It just happened to be that way. I've also dated, you know, girls that didn't come from shit, you know, or were up and coming. Like, oh, I'm still working on my degree or working for like toward veterinary sciences, you know, but they weren't making anything. I drove a nicer car than my last girlfriend. I don't care. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? These people that just have everything handed to them on a silver spoon, you know, it just makes you think, man, like, are we really gonna live like this forever? Are we gonna have that mentality? Because I think people that have that mentality have a nice hot place in hell for themselves, even if they go to church. You know, thou shalt not judge unless he works at a warehouse and makes 19 or 20 an hour. But I know some of y'all have been in that same situation, and this is why I'm making this video, because it's something I have a hard time getting off my chest. My parents have heard the same story over and over, and I still talk about it with friends and people that I meet to this day because I've had a lot of fucking experiences in life at 23 years old. I've been drug through the mud on some things, but at the end of the day, you know, you kind of control yourself. If somebody you date has parents that say, "Well, you can't date them or I don't like him," fuck them. If you love that person, go for it. I don't give a fuck. But at the same time, this was really eye-opening for me, because who's to say that's not you in those shoes at the end of the day? Because it could be. And you got to watch out for those kinds of things because these people are shit, especially I understand they wanted money, right? Because they're insurance company owners, and money was the bottom line to them. And I didn't possess anything noteworthy. I don't know. It's unfortunate, She'll forever still have a place with me, but I know I've probably been long forgotten by now. Oh well, it's life. It is what it is, If you can't make it, you can always go to the gym and do the same exercises over and over again until you feel mentally well with yourself. But yeah, it's the state of dating now, man. Even if you find somebody that you think's gonna work, she had no social media or anything. She only had TikTok and had heard from Duet from TikTok, but even then she didn't post to TikTok. I found a unicorn, and at the same time, essentially, it's like you finding a unicorn and the government coming and shooting it. It's like you can't have nice things. And it's been proven to me. You really can't. You're stuck in the same shitty position until that generation dies and leaves their wealth down. So, anyways, strap in, hang in there. It's only probably gonna get fucking worse from here. But we all know, some of y'all have had situations like that. I know it's kind of rare to come by, but it sticks with me. It burns at my fucking head every day. It really does. It makes me feel mentally unwell to sit here and think about how I'm not good because I'm not rich. But I don't want to be rich. I just want to see the world. Anyways, y'all, I'll catch y'all later.